City Council meeting in person and via Zoom, Tuesday, February 6, 2024, 7 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Councilman Becker,
Here.
Councilman Jekyll,
Here.
Councilman Lesko here,
Here.
Councilman Schultz,
Here.
President Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
Item 3, public hearings. Tonight we have none. Item 4, public comment. The city council will receive comments from city residents. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for the record. When called upon, name, address, subject matter, and contact information. No action will be taken on any public comment unless the item is also elsewhere on the agenda. Note for hybrid meeting. If anyone on the Zoom meeting wishes to speak during the public comment period, please raise your virtual hand through Zoom, and as the chat box is not monitored during the meeting, and those on the call must remain muted if not recognized to speak. Item.
Is there anybody
Pardon?
even do the calls for?
First call for public comment. Anyone in the audience or on Zoom wish to speak? Second call for public comment. Third and final call for public comment. Public comment is closed. Item 5, the consent agenda. The consent agenda is outlined below is hereby presented for action by the city council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one council member. Items not removed may be adopted by one action without debate. Removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the council president.
I move to approve the consent agenda as listed.
Second.
Any further debate? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, petitions, requests, and communications. Tonight, we're blessed with honoring Fort Atkinson's police officer Vanessa Leonard and Johnson Creek police officer Jay Leonard for being awarded the Crisis Intervention Officers of the Year.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Ben Lindsay, and I'm extremely happy to be here tonight as we recognize Officer Vanessa Leonard and Officer Jay Leonard for their Crisis Intervention Award. To do that, I'd like to share a brief synopsis of the nomination that led to their selection. In 2019, Officer Vanessa Leonard and her husband Jay identified a crucial need for mental health resources within the law enforcement community. This realization led to the establishment of the Jefferson County Police Officer Support Team, or POST, a peer-to-peer support network designed to assist officers and their families during times of personal and professional crisis. The primary objective of the team is not to conduct investigations, but rather to provide encouragement and education and normalization of life and career stressors. Thanks to the tireless efforts of Vanessa and Jay, the team now comprises members from every law enforcement agency in the county. Post offers a range of services to law enforcement departments free of charge, including diffusing and debriefing sessions. The team promptly assembles and responds after critical incidents, providing affected responders with an opportunity to process the emotional aspects of high-stress situations. When the situation exceeds the team's capabilities, Vanessa and Jay ensure that they have access to appropriate resources for referral. The resources provided by POST enable our department to send officers into the community with clearer minds and better physical health. Thanks to Vanessa and Jay's selfless efforts, our first responders now have access to support that would otherwise be unavailable. Last month, at the Jefferson County Chiefs of Police Award Banquet, Officer Leonard and her husband Jay were presented with the Crisis Intervention Team Award from Jefferson County Human Services. The award is meant to recognize law enforcement officers who go above and beyond to assist with mental health issues. Please join me in recognizing the tremendous work that Officer Leonard and Officer Leonard have done and continue to do. A little bit of a reenactment, but we have their awards that they received, so everybody could see them. So I'm glad you guys were able to bring them back.
Yeah, we did not break them.
It's kind of neat for our agency over the last 6 years. 4 Fort Atkinson officers have won the Crisis Intervention Officer of the Year award. To me, that's something I'm very proud of for our agency, the amount of effort that we put into crisis intervention and how great our officers are at it. So thank you so much, Vanessa and Jack, for all of your hard work.
Item 7, resolutions and ordinances. Review and possible action relating to a resolution recognizing World Migratory Bird Day on Saturday, May 11th, 2024. Ms. Hausman.
Thank you. The 2024 World Migratory Bird Day will be held on May 11th. The campaign in 2024 will stress the need for proactive conservation measures, including reducing the use of pesticides and fertilizers where possible, and switching to organic farming. Other measures include maintaining and connecting areas of natural vegetation, which provide food and shelter for birds and other species in agricultural landscapes. Annually, since 2016, the city of Fort Atkinson has recognized the second Saturday in May as World Migratory Bird Day as part of the city's Bird City designation. So I won't read the entire resolution there, but it is available on the city's website if anybody wants to take a look at that. And staff does recommend that the city council adopt the resolution proclaiming Saturday, May 11th as World Migratory Bird Day and encourage all citizens to support efforts to protect and conserve migratory birds and their habitats.
I move to adopt the resolution recognizing World Migratory Bird Day on Saturday, May 11th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, reports, officers, boards, and committees. City managers report. Ms. Hausman.
Thank you. I just want to again congratulate Vanessa Leonard and Jay Leonard for receiving the Crisis Intervention Officers of the Year award. Public safety officers have highly stressful jobs, as we know, and we should all take comfort in knowing that they have a confidential support network to access when needed. The new Public Works and Parks Operations Facility construction is now underway. The vacated section of James Place has been permanently closed and the Quonset hut has now been demolished. Public Works Superintendent Tom Williamson continues to be very busy managing this project along with all of his other duties. So thank you, Tom, for that. The Police and Fire Commission has chosen a new fire and EMS chief. Chief Bruce Peterson has accepted the position and was introduced to the fire department earlier this week. A start date, swearing-in ceremony, and other introductions are currently being scheduled. In other staffing news, the Parks and Recreation Director position was open for about 3 weeks and we received 19 applications. The next steps will be to review those applications and schedule interviews. On February 2nd, I attended my first League of Wisconsin Municipalities Board of Directors meeting. It was really great to connect with other municipal leaders in Wisconsin and discuss pending legislation that may impact cities and villages. Tomorrow, I'm attending 2 WEDA, the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority events in Madison. The first is a presentation from WEDA relating to the 4 new workforce housing products that they have developed to address the growing housing crisis. And the second is a matchmaking event aimed at connecting emerging developers with municipal projects. So I intend to, Clerk Ebert is actually going with me, and we intend to provide information relating to the city's land along Banker Road. The Jefferson County Economic Development Consortium and Thrive ED have recently announced that staff has received HUD, that's the Housing and Urban Development Certification for Housing Counseling and Education Services. They have launched the Jefferson County at Home program, which is designed to help individuals make informed decisions about housing options, including renting, purchasing, rehabilitation, and financial management counseling. So please take a look at the Thrive ED website if you're interested, or if you know somebody who might benefit from those types of services. And that's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9, unfinished business. Tonight we have none. Item 10, new business. A, review and possible action on a purchase request for mobile data computers with 2024 CIP funds for the police department at a cost not to exceed $20,490. Chief Bump.
Hello, everyone. In the planning for the capital improvement budget for 2024, one of the items put into that capital improvement was the replacement of our MDCs, or our mobile data computers that are in all of our squad cars. It was a planned replacement as those computers aged and got to their end of life. One of the, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So we're looking to replace all of them. They are ones we currently use, and we're going to stick with the same platform. So what I did is I went out and got quotes. And when we originally got the planning quotes, I estimated for a little bit extra, knowing prices would change. And we set an amount for around $20,000 in the capital improvement. In the budget planning and getting ready to do the memo and come before you today, the prices all kind of increased a little bit, and I underestimated that estimate. But what I'm looking for today is the purchase of 6 mobile data computers. The brand is GTAC that will go into our squad cars. Our officers use those computers every single day, all day while they're on the road. It is their data link to dispatch, to all of our in-house records, our CAD, our RMS, the internet. Officers actually can remove them from the dock in the car, bring them into the building and set them in a dock in the building, and then it becomes a desktop computer in the building. They can take them out of the dock in the squad car. They have a camera on them. They can take pictures at a crime scene, immediately load them into our RMS system, into the investigation that they're working on, be it a crime scene or an accident scene. It really allows us to be efficient and effective in a lot of the work we do each day. I obtained 2 competitive quotes. One is from our current vendor that we used the last time we purchased, and who supplies all of our GTAC equipment. That's Midwest Public Safety. And then we also found that there has since we made that purchase, a new vendor, which is CDWG. We use CDWG for a lot of other computer related purchases, and both of these businesses are able to quote under government pricing. So we get a reduced government pricing for those products as well within these quotes. It was brought to my attention when I got here tonight that I accidentally forwarded over the wrong quote, and it has one extra line item in the Midwest Public Safety quote for $700. That's not supposed to be in there. That was a different purchase, and he pulled it out. And I have the quote that doesn't reflect that line item here. You just don't have it with you, but the dollar amount quoted in the lowest bid I received for this purchase was through Midwest Public Safety for $20,490. And that is for the 6 MDC computers that will go in the 6 squad cars, and then a bumper to bumper 4-year extended warranty. So I'd like approval from you to move forward and make this purchase so we can get those updated in our car for an amount not to exceed the $20,490 from Midwest Public Safety. And I'm open for any questions if you have any.
I will just note that this is part of the levy funded CIP, and it is located on page 217 of the city's 2024 adopted budget document.
So this is for 6 computers. Is that that's not your entire fleet of computers, or is that?
It's a full replacement of all of the computers, or they're actually technically tablets that go into docking stations, but it would be a full replacement across the fleet of the 6 cars that we put them in. We have more than 6 cars in our fleet, but we do not put these units in every single car. Just the marked patrol or the patrol vehicles get them.
Okay.
I move to approve the purchase of 6 mobile data computers from Midwest Public Safety with 2024 CIP funds for the police department at a cost not to exceed $20,490.
Second.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Item B, review and possible action relating a 2024 construction contract for water main replacement and street improvements. Mr. Selly.
Thank you. This is planned work, as you mentioned in 2024. There's two components to this project. One is our usual water main replacement program, which is going to focus on Cloud Street, Zafke Street, Caswell, and the balance of Nelson Street that we have not taken care of already under that emergency project we did late in 23. And then the second project that we have is a sanitary sewer relay project. This is directly related to the purchase, or maybe exchange is a better word, of land across from Jones Park that the city made with the school district back in, I want to say 2020, if I'm not mistaken. And that land was slated for residential development. In doing a little research, we found that the sewer system in that area on Maple and Grant Street in particular was laid flat and inadequate. So adding additional homes to that system on Maple Street in particular was not in the best interest of our residents. So we started a project then to replace that, and it is before you this evening. We're going to take that sewer and run it to the south. It currently drains to the north, or doesn't drain to the north, frankly. But it's going to go to the south on Park Street and then over to Grove Street. We will be redoing all of Grove Street with new pavement, even though the sewer system portion will only be a few hundred feet just south of the Park Street intersection. I think that all those with kids around Luther School are probably going to be very happy about that to come next year. So good news with this project. This is the first time we've been able to get the bids out in 23, or the year previous to the year we're doing the work. That's been a goal of mine for a while, and we were able to get it done this year. Largely because this design, or much of this design, was already on the shelf from a project that SEH designed back in 2017. So the percentage of new design here was relatively small. Putting out the bids early resulted in 5 bids for the work, which is the most we've ever received in my tenure here. We're doing good usually to get 3, sometimes just 2. So I was very happy to see a range of bids. All of these folks, except for asphalt contractors and Munson Brothers, have done work here in the city. So a couple of new faces. The bid award itself, Forest Construction and Landscaping was the low bid. They've done work here for, I think this is their 4th project that they'll be endeavoring to accomplish in 2024. So we've had a good working relationship with that group of late. The bid itself will be broken out among 5 accounts, which I think council is kind of becoming familiar with by now in terms of how we send various components of this cost to the sanitary utility, water utility, storm utility, and then of course the road Fund 5 account. And that's all detailed for you within the memo. There are some elements of this bid that were a little bit complicated. As usual, I put out the replacement or installation of sidewalks along all of the project area. And as usual, we can't afford to do all of them. But the one area that I would like to target is Clout Street. You'll note in the packet that map that I provided that shows a bit of a lack of sidewalks in that north-south direction within the area. Clout Street has a number of driveways that already have either sidewalk in front of them or sidewalk laid into their existing driveway with no sidewalk on either side. I'd like to fill in the rest of Clout Street so that we can get some north-south connectivity in that area. So what I am asking council to approve this evening is a a contract with Forest Landscape and Construction that would be composed of a base bid of roughly $2.1 million. That would cover the water main project and the sanitary sewer projects that we have within the base work. I would ask for $100,000 towards that Clout Street sidewalk. And then the third alternate in there was the replacement of sewer laterals within the area that we're relaying sewer main. Sewer laterals are all owned by the landowner themselves. So we would not be paying for that. However, I did receive a bid from the contractor for those that would like to have their laterals replaced. So they will be reimbursing the city essentially if they choose to do that. So that cost will be paid by the city, but will be reimbursed. So I would like council to approve that cost this evening, but of course knowing that that bill will be paid by the landowner if they choose to do it. So like I said, a little bit complicated in terms of the approval. And then I added a 10% contingency to just simply the base bid in the amount of $222,000. And as past practice has been, that allows me to kind of manage unforeseen situations through construction, of course, with the approval of the city manager. And that's worked out quite well on several projects now, including the wastewater treatment facility that we just kind of finished up, and then last year's street program work. So it's a lot to take in, but I think it was fairly well laid out in the memo. But I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have for this.
Upon completing this, over by Maple and Grove, that vacant property, will that then therefore be viable for building?
It will. So part of this project, thank you for asking, is to stub in water and sewer to those lots that are at across the street from Jones Park. They face Grove Street and Maple Street. So those will be ready essentially to divide. We haven't done that formally yet through a CSM, and then ready to sell. And so we'll come back to council when all that's ready to go, and ask for your input on some of that stuff and decisions on how to approach that.
That sounds like a beautiful thing. We've talked about that for several years.
Yeah, it's a long time coming for sure.
Andy, does Forrest have an anticipated start date on this if we approve, or?
I haven't asked. I'm hoping that they start tomorrow, right? Because there's no frost in the ground. We still have to finish Rogers Street. So that project is ready to go essentially for them. They have, I believe the bid documents indicated that they have until October to finish. But my hope is that we'll get them in here right away in the spring, and we'll be the first project on the docket instead of the second or third, which is usually where we end up on the schedule.
It'd be nice to see the roads done, not coming November and scrambling.
Yeah, it's nice not to have to deal with weather at the end of the season.
Yeah, I appreciate this, and I'm glad too we got so many quality bids, and like you noted in the past, usually we get 2, maybe 3 bids on a project like this. And I'm also excited to see we're addressing those streets along Maple, east of Jones Park, and hopefully, and we're going to cover that later, but getting some of that work done that we've been talking about for a long time. I just hope we don't have too many people in the audience tonight or online, but I hope people will kind of look at this and maybe take a look at the packet online. And we're doing a lot, and we're spending nearly $2.5 million on this, and in the matter of the scope of the entire city, it doesn't cover a lot. I hope people will just understand that your dollars only stretch so far these days, and we're trying to do as much as we can. So I thought this was a really well put together bid or quote, and appreciate the work you're doing.
Andy, with those, in the areas where sidewalk is being added, and we don't have enough to necessarily do all of it on both sides of the street, how do you select which side of the street, east, west, north, south? How do you?
I think
is there a
for
general rule of thumb?
yeah, well, in general, I try to put it on both sides. If we have to put it on one side or the other, usually utilities come into play there. So we look at where we've got gas, electric, things like that. Our utilities, of course, are on both sides of the street. And then from that point, I look at the number of driveways. So if one side of the street has fewer driveways than another, that creates less expense, frankly, to do it on the side with fewer driveways. So.
I mean, you also consider connectivity, as you mentioned before.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
in the case of Cloud Street, you know, you're picking the west side of the street because it wouldn't make any sense to connect the east side of the street
Right.
when there's just a smaller area to connect the existing sidewalk with Madison Avenue.
Right, but I believe my intent on Cloud Street is to put on both sides. That's what the bid is for, so that we can finish what's already there and then take advantage on the other side of those driveways that already have sidewalk essentially formed into their driveways.
Thanks.
For the areas kind of planned out for this year's work, do you have an estimated like mileage of street that'll be redone?
Not off the top of my head. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of a mile. That generally is where we fall with our water main. The amount of money that we collect from our ratepayers specifically for water main replacement is just shy of a mile a year is where we're at.
Okay, and I think that generally lines up. And I think another thing that many people don't know, like our budget for street road repair or replacement compared to what that actually gets us is usually about $1 million a mile, give or take.
Yeah, that's a reasonable
And that's
number.
just for the street surface. That's not different funds pay for the water and whatnot. But one thing that we see the city do year on year over year is that we select neighborhoods or connected streets and get the projects all done at once. It also includes the water, sewer, et cetera, that goes along with it, because that maximizes the benefit of every dollar being spent on this.
Correct. And that's a good point with respect to the sanitary sewer project that we're doing. The water main in this area is some of the oldest main that we have, but is in very good shape. So I elected not to replace the water main on Grant and Maple and Grove because it is in decent shape. I expect it to last another 30 to 50 years. And then we'll be rebuilding those streets at that time and replacing the water main. So we do select areas to work on where we go take care of what's underground so that we don't have to go back again after we put new pavement over the top and deal with anything and dig it up.
And I will state from experience, this area that we are doing is a very problematic area. If anyone lives in that area, you'll see all the different patches within the road pavement.
Yeah.
I would move to approve the 2024 construction contract for water main replacement and street improvements with Forest Construction in the amount not to exceed $2,480,329 with a 10% contingency to be managed by the Public Works Director and City Manager.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item C, review and possible action on a design contract for the city 2025 water main replacement and street improvements. Mr. Sully.
Thank you. So I put out a request for proposals in late December for a number of design contracts, 3 of which will come before you this evening. This was one, again, in trying to get ahead of our street water improvements design. I want to start designing our 2025 work now with the expectation of putting that out to bid in late fall of 2024. This work will focus on Memorial Drive, Eric Street and McMillan Street. Eric Street is a little bit out of the general location of the other two, but unfortunately we were unable to get to Eric Street a few years ago when we were working in that area. And as Councilman Jekyll can attest to, Eric Street has a tremendous number of main breaks on it. And I think we'll be on the heels of the new facility construction. And so it might be a nice way to kind of wrap that area up a bit, provide the residents with a nice new road in that area and take care of some of the water main issues that we've had there. We received a total of, we had a lot of bids for this one, frankly, which was great. A total of 7 bids for this work. This work is very much kind of a commodity. So most any firm that touts themselves as an engineering firm will do a good job at this work. Individuals in each of the firm vary in terms of how well they can deliver the project, but the firm itself should be very much well positioned to do this. So it really comes down when you're choosing a firm to cost. And I made that apparent to most of the firms that I talked to about this. So everybody submitted a scope and a proposal that would have accomplished the work. In this situation, Rupert Milkie, who's done the vast majority of our work here for the last 2 years or 3 years, were the low bid, not by much, as you'll note. Grafe was right behind them. But we decided to go with the low bidder with Rupert Milkie in this situation. Their total was $61,315. And we've been generally happy with the work that they provided thus far. So I think we'll benefit from that relationship going into 2025. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council might have related to this.
Yeah, I've got a question. So in the packet, it was discussed many times, like the spun casts mains that have been used that was, put in place 50 or so years ago. What would be the new material being put in and expected lifespan that we'd expect?
It's $1 million question, Councilman Schultz. So the new material that we're using is C900 plastic main. There is a debate with frankly evidence on both sides that the new ductile iron water main, it's not a spun cast main, is superior to the plastic main, and you get the same on the other side. The plastic main is superior to the ductile iron. We have both in the city. We have moved towards doing all plastic main in the last, I think 2017 maybe was the last year that we put in ductile iron main, water main. It's much lighter. The plastic is much lighter to work with. It's less expensive. We don't see a huge difference in the cost per linear foot of installation, but it is cheaper. But I'm not certainly saying it's 50% cheaper or anything like that. And so that's the main that we've used going forward. We won't know how long it'll last, right? 50 years is kind of the standard when you ask an engineer how long something should last, but we all know we have water main in the ground right now that's over 100 years old and still functioning, sewer main in the ground, clay pipe that's still functioning. So I expect it to last at least 50 years. I'm hoping it goes at least to a century, but we won't know until we get to that point.
I will move to approve the design contract for 2025 water main replacement and street improvements with Rupert Milkie in an amount not to exceed $61,315.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item D. Review and possible action on a design contract for the Riverside Drive water main and sanitary sewer improvements. Mr. Sully.
Thank you. So I gave a little background there on the Riverside Drive situation within the memo. We currently are working some different angles on the latest information that we have from the DOT, which indicated this project's been pushed from 2026 construction to a 2030 construction. This particular contact that we have at the DOT was very helpful on the Robert Street Bridge project in getting that moved forward, and with a great team that resulted in frankly an outstanding project for the city. And so I'm hoping that we can deliver something similar in this situation. So to be determined, but obviously city staff was not terribly excited when we heard that this was pushed out another 4 years. To that end, however, they have started design work on the Riverside Drive portion of State Trunk Highway 106. We are responsible for the water main and the sanitary sewer design in that corridor. We certainly will be replacing the water main. The sanitary sewer, we're not sure. We'll see what the condition of that is. Lining is always an option with those if the pipe structure itself is in reasonable shape versus completely replacing. So we'll figure that out. But anyway, we'll move forward with our consultant on the things that we can control, which is the design of that water main and sewer. And then we'll continue to engage with DOT and hopefully get this project moved forward sooner than 2020 or sooner than 2030. We had, again, a number of very good proposals for this project. And as I stated before, this project in particular, aside from the fact that it is nested within a DOT project, is again kind of a commodity project. Very good firms can accomplish this fairly easily with water main and sanitary sewer design. Again, we had some great bids for this, but went with the low bid in this situation, which was Grafe. They provided I'm sorry, not the low bid. We went with Grafe, who was $2,000 more than the low bid, which was Rupert Milky. But we decided to go with Grafe just simply to spread some of this design work around a little bit to some of the other firms that are providing us these proposals and this service. So the amount of their proposal was $47,000, $47,147 for that work. The next lowest bid was $45,000 from Rupert Milky, so about a $2,000 difference. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have related to this contract.
This would be one of the areas where you got the 100-year-old stuff underground.
We do. This is 4-inch. There's a long section of 4-inch main on Riverside Drive that's quite old. A number of lead services. My house was one of those lead services right there at the end of Shirley Street. So yeah, there'll be wholesale water replacement through here. Sanitary sewer, if my memory serves, I don't think it's in terrible shape. I believe we cambered it a few years ago when we had that backup down at the end of Riverside Drive from the interceptor. And found that generally it was in okay shape, but we'll revisit that with a camera, make sure, and decide whether we replace it or line it.
Does the design plan include, at least in concept, a bike path?
That we are pushing for that. So that's one of the things that we're sort of at loggerheads with the DOT on, is that they have the type of road that they want to replace there, essentially what's there, and we're saying that what's there doesn't work for us. That we would like to see speeds reduced. We'd like to see a multi-use path through that corridor. We'd like to see curb and gutter in a more urban cross section all the way out to Sinisippi Drive, where the access to the pool and Rock River Park is. We'd like to see the guardrail removed. That's a huge maintenance issue for us, and frankly, if we can slow the speeds down, the safety concerns go away. We'd like to see some of the trees maintained through that section, some of them that are the larger trees that can be preserved. There's a number of things that we have indicated to the DOT would be beneficial to the residents of Fort Atkinson. And I think we've really dug in our heels here, because it's going to be another 50 years before DOT comes and checks out Riverside Drive. I think we've kind of learned our lesson, with respect to the infrastructure in town that's maintained by the state. So it's worth it for us to push hard in this situation and try to get what really is the best thing for our city. I'm not saying the DOT is not looking out for that, certainly, but their task is to manage roads throughout the state. Not necessarily look at each road with respect to the community that it serves. That's our job. And so I think you'll see more details to the story unfold probably in the coming months.
Well, I'm hoping that we do that. The multi-use path has seen such a fantastic use in the city. To connect it through there would be just wonderful.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice. Sidewalk would be just an impressive addition going out past Wilson Avenue, for sure. So we'll continue those conversations and keep council updated.
So you said, other than the two companies, Graf and Radke, they both are basically identical experience. The only reason was just to spread the work around.
Yeah, I think in the summary that you have here, the differentiator that I provided with their team was that Grafe did have somebody who had done a project where they were working with WisDOT. So a situation where WisDOT was kind of the main design group, and this team was designing to that project somewhat separately. So they got a 5 in that rating, whereas Rupert Milky got well, Rupert Milky had a 5 in that as well. I gave Grafe, oh, I see. It was the adherence to the cost format, or adherence to the format of the RFP. They got a 5 because they provided the RFP or the proposal exactly in the format that I asked for. For Rupert and Milky, they had provided a project understanding page and some other things that weren't necessarily requested, basically an extra 2 or 3 pages of stuff that I had specifically asked not to provide. So they were down 2 points in there. So the value was 27 points for Grafe and 25 points for Rupert Milky. The $2,000 difference there, however, really doesn't come into play. And in my opinion, those are the same bids, even though there's a $2,000 difference. And I think it's important for us to be able to maintain a little bit of a stable, I guess, of design consultants that we can reach out to when we need to. So the relatively small difference in cost, coupled with the relatively small, frankly, differences between those two proposals, is what drove us to select Grafe.
And I'd hate to push this job off any further if we can get it moved up. You ask anyone in the city, this is the road that everybody sees as the worst road in the city, so.
Yeah, has been for some time.
Andy, I know city staff has worked hard on this for years, and Councilman Jekyll said it's one of our most complained about streets. I actually visited your old house on Sunday night, and I felt like the eastbound lane was starting to slope down a little bit again. It's becoming a little more noticeable. And I hope folks appreciate, the DOT, they do great work, but they are not always an easy agency to deal with. And sometimes the expectations we have locally are very different from what they have working in their offices in Madison or wherever. And I hope we can keep pushing and get that moved up, but I do think it's important, like you said, this probably will be 50 more years before it's revisited again. So we need to get it right when it's done this time, and not make compromises that residents are ultimately going to be unhappy with. So I'm glad we're doing this design work now.
Yeah, I appreciate the support of council with respect to that, because it could be a bit of a slog to get to where we need to be, but I think we're willing to go through it. So.
Andy, I think if my memory serves me correct, you did achieve a grant for some of this work?
Not Riverside Drive, no. We have some grants through the DOT for South Main Street, for Commonwealth, and then for some corridor planning on Janesville Avenue and the downtown area. Those are the active grants I have right now.
So is Riverside Drive fully at the city's expense, or is it shared expense with the state?
It is a shared expense. The state pays, I think, 100% of the construction related to the roadway as well as the storm sewer. They split with us. I believe it's an 80-20 split. We pay 20% of the design of those elements, and then the state pays 80%. We are fully responsible for design and construction of the water and sanitary improvements there, and then anything else that we ask for that's above and beyond. So for instance, the multi-use path that we're talking about, we may end up paying an upcharge for that. So what they'll say is, normally we would put in a sidewalk costs $100. You're asking for a multi-use path that costs $150. State or City of Fort Atkinson, you'll pay the $50 portion, and they will take care of the sidewalk portion.
I
Does
hope
that
we
make sense?
show the wisdom to go that path and make it happen.
Yeah, like I said, even just sidewalk would be an improvement. But we have within our comprehensive plan that corridor to put in some sort of a path along the river there, and then coming up around Shirley Street and then heading out to the west. So it's a challenge. We have that Intaglio that's down just a little ways past Wilson Street. If we could go back 10,000 years and talk to those Native Americans and have them move that about 10 feet to the north, it would be perfect. But right now it's square in the way of our multi-use path. So, which is a good example. From my standpoint, it is okay. Let's figure out a way to get the multi-use path through there. Do we build a bridge? Do we incorporate some sort of a creative solution here? And the DOT is, they just say, well, no, we can't put anything there, and that's the end of it. So that's a great example of kind of the different perspectives that are brought to the table in that situation.
And when you talk about an 80-20 shared expense, it sounds like the city's getting a great benefit from your work. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it hasn't happened yet, but we're trying, that's for sure. So.
I've got a question. If the expected like DOT state portion of this wouldn't be done until 2030, is this the right time to spend money on the design work, or do we feel like prices are just going to go up over time, or this might position us better to maybe have the project moved up?
Yeah,
we can demonstrate
so
it's done?
with the timeline here is, I put this out to bid December the 10th, I think, to 14 different firms or 13 different firms. Several of them called the DOT and were asking the DOT about aspects of this to sort of understand where the design of this fit into their design. On December the 20th or so, I got an email from the DOT saying that they punted the project to 2030 while this was still out to bid. So had I known ahead of time that it was out to 2030, we may have prolonged this a little bit. I did talk to Grafe on Friday and let them know that, we may delay this slightly to understand where DOT is at. But frankly, the underground utilities here are, relatively independent to a certain extent of the road situation, right? I don't want manholes in the wheel path as we have now. That's the number one thing from a design standpoint. But the water is somewhat independent of where the road ends up, and the lateral replacements and things like that. Sanitary sewer situation, if we decide to line it, frankly, may have very little to do with what's happening up above. So we can get a fair bit of the design done, I think, but stop short of a situation where we're doing design that we'll have to redo later on. Okay, long answer.
And yes, it does position us well if somehow we work some magic and get the DOT to move the project up.
Yeah.
Having the design done already is critical.
If nothing else, it allows me to respond. I've had this thrown in my face the last year or two. We don't even have a consulting engineer on board to design the sanitary and water. So therefore we're behind. So now I can say, well, we've got our sanitary and water design 75% done.
Okay.
And put it back on them. But
I hope my questions didn't like.
no, not at all. Not at all.
I hate this road and I avoid it. I avoid it at all costs. And so like I want to see, I'd love to see this done as soon as possible, but I understand I'm gonna have to make some phone calls to the DOT in my spare time. So.
Yeah, we're definitely strategizing ways to get this thing done better and sooner. So.
It's tough enough with a car there, but if you've taken a bike down that street, it's even worse.
Yeah, I used to ride home for lunch along there, and it was not pleasant whatsoever.
Take a big truck through that area. It's even better.
I move to approve the design contract with Grafe for the Riverside Drive water main and sanitary sewer improvements in an amount not to exceed $47,147.
Second.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item E. Review and possible action on a contract for the design on the Banker Road Development Public Infrastructure. Mr. Sully.
Thank you. So again, a project that has been making steady progress, but perhaps not in a public way here recently. So as council will recall, I think the last time we touched base on this, we had two roads in the area that were mapped out via CSM. One was Hawthorne Drive along the high school. What is the high school entrance currently? And then the other was Trillium Drive on the north side of the proposed Trillium development. And then, of course, the third road in here is Banker Road, which we have maintained throughout the concept planning phase would be relocated along a portion of its length. The time has come for us to engage in the design of those three elements of the project. So this would include not only the design of the road, but all of the underground utilities as well through that area. And I will note that we did include in the proposal that the design of the intersection of Trillium Drive and Hawthorne Drive would look to build that small roundabout that was suggested in the traffic impact analysis that was done by Grafe a few years ago. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that comes together. We received a number of interested parties on this, a total of 6. I will note to council that I put in the proposal that we would like to have the option to phase this project. So we know we need to bring in utilities along Hawthorne Drive, and we know we need to make that connection in Trillium Drive, as well as some improvements to the south of Banker Road. But we don't necessarily have to build the relocated section of Banker Road to the north. So when it comes time to look at this from kind of that 90% design level, where we'll have some cost estimates for the entire thing and understand the phasing and the advantages or disadvantages to doing it all at once or waiting and doing it in pieces, we'll have that information to make those decisions at that time. So again, we had a total of 6 respondents to this particular request for proposals. This does have some elements to it that are that do lend themselves to looking at the proposals and the expertise on each of the teams. It is a little bit different than the water main and sewer replacement. So you'll note there in the summary of the reviews of the proposals, there's a little more differentiation on some things in there than you saw on the previous reviews that were performed. I'll just cut to the chase. Quam Engineering, Ryan Quam, who is a semi-familiar face, I think, to council and a familiar face to city staff, has been engaged out here prior to the city purchasing the property. He was the design consultant for what was the Copperhead Meadows planned subdivision, so had quite a bit of experience in this area, as well as more recently moving forward and gaining approvals for an apartment complex at the corner of Campus Drive and what will become Hawthorne Drive. So his bid was $100,000 cheaper than the next lowest bid for the design work. The bid range was fairly significant, frankly. If you take out the low of 95, we had 195,000 for SEH, all the way up to the maximum, which was 298,000 for Kapoor and Associates. So a fairly wide bid range. So I called a number of the references. Actually, I called both of the references that Ryan had provided, checked into to that a little bit to make sure that we weren't missing anything here. I did talk with Ryan about his scope in particular to understand exactly, to make sure that he understand the work that was ahead of him clearly, and found all of that to be in order. The references checked out quite well. They all had great experiences with his firm. So I think the city is getting a great deal here with the proposal at $95,000. The expertise, I think, is there with Quam Engineering to accomplish this work. And my recommendation is to move ahead with a contract for design of the Banker Road infrastructure with Quam Engineering. I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have related to that.
In moving forward on this, Andy, are we solely focused on a larger developer to take on larger pieces of the pie? Or will we reach a tilting point where we can sell single lots if we chose to?
I think both options are on the table. I think when we're talking about the multifamily aspects to this, those developers are bigger players, right? They're not the single family home type players, and so we've really focused a lot on those relationships. But we have within the last year had a couple of different single family home developers that are regional in the area approach us and are very much interested in us essentially taking this step, saying, hey, we're going to commit to the design for this and start looking at the infrastructure. And then them coming back to the table and saying, okay, maybe we can start with a few of these single family homes in the area and stuff like that. So I think both options are on the table. Both options could frankly move ahead at the same time. And we have continued to talk about through this process, trying to make sure that we can preserve some lots for local builders in this. That certainly is something that we have, that we continue to hope to do, to make sure that, because we have a handful of folks here in the city that have been building here for a while, and we want to make sure they have an opportunity to have some lots as well, if they so choose to build.
And living here for my entire life, I watched a lot of different subdivisions appear, from West Park to Arrowhead to everything. I mean, McCoy Park used to be the end of town. Everything past that was farmland.
Sure.
It seemed like anytime we got one going, it took a little bit to get the first handful of homes in it, but once that started, they like filled at a rapid rate.
Yeah. Yeah. All the indications are exactly that we have a lack of housing, that we have the need, but until somebody proves it, it's just a need that's on paper, I think. And so, I agree. I think we, on the staff side of things, we feel like once you get one or two of these things in the ground, we're gonna catch like wildfire, but, you know how that goes.
No, I agree with Councilman Johnson. I'm glad we're taking this step. I'm glad that we are still planning on doing the relocation of the portion of Banker Road. I actually have a great aunt who lives in Whitewater now and just turned 100 a couple months ago, but she used to live on the east side of Banker Road, and she was very glad that we're going to try to preserve at least some of that tree canopy that's there and kind of make that a nice amenity for the whole community. So that's great. President Johnson's point about, I do think that once we get some houses breaking ground, it's gonna start turning some heads, and we'll get more, builders, developers at the table, whatever. The economics of the whole thing are really, really tough. I know Rebecca has worked really hard on this along with city staff. It's not just a Fort Atkinson issue, it's throughout the county, really, that it's tough to make development go right now. But I'm glad we're continuing to take these steps to move forward. So, and I'm glad we got such a great bid too.
Yeah. I should note that, that the funding for this will come from the anticipation note, as was noted in the memo. So the borrowing package that we're going to put forward for the Banker Road work and a number of other projects here in the city.
I'm glad we're doing this, and I move to approve the design contract for the Banker Road Development Public Infrastructure with Quam Engineering in an amount not to exceed $95,425 using funds received through the Note Anticipation Notes Series 2024B.
Second.
Further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 11, miscellaneous. Tonight we have none. Item 12, claims, appropriation, and contract payments. A review and possible action relating to verified claims presented to the Director of Finance and authorization of payment.
I move to, go ahead.
I move to approve the verified claims as presented.
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Jekyll,
Aye.
Councilman Lesko Hair,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz.
Aye.
President Johnson.
Aye.
Good job.
Item 13, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.